Hi, I'm Scott Goldfein, Editor-in-Chief and Associate Publisher of Security Sales Integration. I'm delighted to have with me today Dave Sheffey, Senior Vice President, Northern Region for Napco Security Technologies. He's here to discuss key recurring monthly revenue trends for security dealers and integrators. Dave, so nice to talk with you again. How are you?
Very good, very good. Thanks for having me, Scott.
Excellent. We're going to jump right in.
All right.
So, Dave, what do you see as the most promising recurring revenue or RMR opportunities out there for dealers and integrators right now?
Well, Scott, that's a kind of a wide question. Obviously, today we've gone through the last several years a very changing marketplace. Um, you know, for us, we've had a I'll say a great product that we brought to market several years ago that's kind of invigorated the company. It brought us into new markets. That's the StarLink radio. And so, from how I sit in my perspective, the radio today has brought a lot of additional reoccurring revenue and revenue opportunity for dealers across the security spectrum. Specifically, and probably most importantly over the last couple of years for us, has been the introduction of the StarLink Fire radios. So, as many dealers have migrated into different businesses, where a lot of the dealers, 20 years ago, were doing largely residential, some commercial. Uh, Acquisition has uh, been kind of a moniker of many of the large companies out there buying those mid-sized companies, which has kind of left a vacuum. And mid-sized dealers have grown to be larger dealers in the commercial space. And in that commercial space, fire is a very lucrative part of the commercial installation for security today and security and fire. And what's happened over the last couple of years is the unreliability of POTS lines, and certainly the rising cost of POTS lines, and now the elimination of POTS lines. Certainly not even to mention the sunset that's occurred a couple of times, and in the process now. The elimination of a POTS line, which typically nationally is about $65 per line. And as you know, it takes two lines to put on a fire panel, and that's two dedicated lines. That's $130. And in addition to that, the dealer would typically have been charging somewhere in the neighborhood of $45 to $50 per month just to monitor the fire system over the customer paid $130 phone lines. Well, today, that migration of service from let's just call it a POTS line provider to the fire company or security company providing fire services has resulted in that migration of much of that revenue that was going to a POTS line provider is now falling in the hands of the security or fire provider for that service and allowing them greater RMR. For example, if I was a commercial location and I was paying for two phone lines at $130, and that's a kind of an average, but in many cases, many big cities, that's on the low side. And then I was paying $45 a month or $50 a month to the security company or fire company. I would be paying somewhere in the neighborhood of $180. And so if the company providing that service now charges and installs a radio, which for that radio they only pay typically $12 or so a month for that service, where the consumer was paying $130 for those two phone lines. So that $12 service now it replaces that $130 service. Now, of course, there's additional revenue that the supplier, not supplier, but the security company or the fire company adds to that. So let's just say they charged $75 or $80 a month. The savings to the consumer, the end user, is somewhere in the neighborhood of $100 a month. So that's $1,200 a year. So it's kind of a no-brainer. It's very much like when the consumers shifted their phone service from AT&T, the phone service provider, to the cable companies, and it was bundled, and they had great savings. Even in my own home, I saved $1,200 a year just in phone service charges for moving from AT&T to the cable provider with my bundled service. So this is very much the same thing. And it's given the security company, the fire company, a great opportunity to increase their RMR and increase their profitability. And that's just one aspect of what a radio can do for RMR. And today, over the last several years, we've seen the increase in the amount of interactive services that are being done, the requested interactive services. Though we know that through many surveys and much information that's been gathered, that 90 to 95% of the interactive services are really just simply keypad emulation and notifications. Dealers have, even though the trend was to do a lot of additional Z-Wave compatible type lighting and different things, that hasn't been the big boom that a lot of people have thought, because it's a very small percentage that we're still doing that. That percentage will grow and continue to grow, but as other industries, the heating and cooling business provides their own thermostats today. It's not as important for us to have that all integrated, even though we do, so we can provide that one app service. This gives us and the security dealer the opportunity, again, moving to a radio and moving away from a POTS line, to get some of that revenue that was typically paid to a POTS line provider, or even the cable company for that matter. What it also does is it gives the dealer the opportunity to take control of the entire path, instead of somebody calling and saying, "Oh, we're having a phone line problem," or "We have a problem. Whose problem is it?" In this particular case, it's a simple fix. We have a radio, and that radio is pretty high quality product, works all the time, is as reliable as a POTS line, but it's all in the control of the security dealer or fire dealer today. So it's not a he said, she said kind of a situation where the consumer is at the mercy of a declining phone service, which may have, nobody is servicing anymore. Verizon has actually sent out information to their employees that they could be terminated if they fix a POTS line. So, these are all things that are driving people to a method of getting signals to a central station. Now, obviously, we have internet today as well, not as prevalent, obviously, in fire, but in many cases, an opportunity to get signals to a central station. It's important to note that dealers in our business are facing quite a challenge, and that challenge is the consumer is maybe their buying habits are a little different. They may be buying online. They may be buying products that are offered for do-it-yourself, and they're offered at low cost and low service. They may have to do the install themselves. So we have created a new product called iSecure, which offers interactive services through a new hub-based security system. And that gives the dealers the opportunity to be competitive from a product cost standpoint with the DIY type product. And what this allows them to do is to again, be very competitive from a monthly monitoring and not losing that RMR because they couldn't afford to do that installation. Any dealer today, no matter what size, can afford to spend $150 in product to get a monthly RMR account added. And what we know is that no matter who the provider is on a DIY type of an application, or even your bigger players like ADT, that what they advertise and what they sell is two different things. In other words, an average cost of a system is not the $99 that it's typically billed at. It's much higher than that as things are added on. So as our dealers understand, and they've been competing with these players for a very long time, but now they're also competing with DIY type internet providers that of product. And it's really important to note that there are competitive product out there, and the cost of these integrated services today for the dealer. I mean, the iSecure product, or the Connect Radio that offers these same services on a more traditional hardwired hybrid type product, only cost the dealer $6.95 per month. And it's important to note that consumers today are looking for those services, and maybe not necessarily the expanded services like we talked about, controlling the thermostat and the lights, even though some people will argue that that's important. What is important is the dealer's opportunity to maintain his viability and continue to compete against these new ways that people are gaining market share compared to how we've done this traditionally. Yes, that's kind of the take on things. I think that the RMR opportunity is alive and strong, and you just have to know how to compete against your competitor today, or who your competitor is even. A lot of those people who were in the security business that found it difficult, maybe people who did a lot of new construction, new residential construction, and they were big enough, they've migrated into a more commercial company, so they have found a different path. The smaller guys who may not have had that capability have to find ways to be competitive with the Simply Safes, the Vivants, the ADTs that make up a very large part of the business, but they have advantages over the small guy, that from a size standpoint, that the small dealer has to compete with. And it's important to note that the small dealer has the opportunity to compete on a level with those people and provide a good quality product like iSecure, or even a standard Napco Gemini product using a StarLink radio to deliver their new services and their communication today, and to continue to build their RMR.
Wow, Dave, you really laid out the landscape fantastically there. Thank you for that.
Yeah.
A lot of opportunity, which is a great thing. We love that. As far as choosing a partner to help them succeed in today's environment, what should they look for? What can Napco bring to the fore that can help them succeed with some of the opportunities that you were discussing?
Well, Scott, today you've got the dealers have a lot of things that they have to face. One, they obviously have to face competition. Two, they've got an upcoming sunset that sunsets for both AT&T and Verizon. And the first thing that they have to make sure is that they're prepared to face that sunset, and to get everything accomplished and converted. As I understand it, in a recent AICC meeting, it was discussed that AT&T was going to continue, just as they have in the past, take towers down between really now and the sunset in February of 2022, where Verizon was going to stay up and running and not take towers down, not without specific problems that can't be resolved at the end of December in 2022. So two different ways of approaching the sunset. So if you have AT&T radios, and many people do have AT&T radios because they were the prevalent provider of services for most radio companies, take a look at that. That's really important. What's an advantage for us is that we actually provide a $100 radio, and we give $100 back in service for the purchase of that radio when you register it. We always run monthly specials, which add greater value to the cost of the radio, reducing the cost of the radio. So your cost of hardware is virtually nothing. Now, obviously, the benefit to that is that consumers today, with the recent sunset in the last 5 years, are faced with another sunset. Now, they don't look at technology for alarms the same way they do technology for their smartphones. But this allows the installer, installing company, to provide quality hardware at a very economical price to be able to make that happen. And we also know that POTS lines are going away, so the continued replacement of POTS lines with radios, and we have a full complement of bird radios, fire radios for every market in the country, no matter what they're looking for, as far as radios with or without power supplies in a metal can, vice versa, with every NFPA mandated option that's been adopted in every state. And we also have interactive services radios. We just came out with a new radio that is compatible with low cost, selling right now for around $100, again with a $100 rebate, and that radio uploads and downloads on a Honeywell and a DSC panel. So those people who have all those products can utilize a Napco StarLink radio, get the same StarLink quality, and benefit from that cost saving. So in our case, timing is good. Sunset is very disruptive because it takes time away from the sale and the accrual of new RMR from new installations, but it's a necessary evil. It's an opportunity. Putting in a radio, when someone puts in a radio, they typically increase their monthly in excess of what what we may charge as a monthly service. They typically increase their monthly by more than $10. So it's an opportunity to grow your RMR as well. Fire is substantially more than that. So it's a great opportunity from a fire standpoint. And, it's all of that, it's a pretty vibrant business today. It's changing, but changing in a slightly different way. And you have to adapt to it. If you don't adapt, and I see companies on a very regular basis, and I see companies that have adapted. And I'd like to say that we sat around, and there was a long-term 20-year plan to migrate to becoming a real viable, a huge supplier of radios today. But I don't think that was actually it's an evolution that's occurred by producing a good quality product with a great marketing plan, and it's brought us to a point where we've seen other companies and many manufacturers have sold or disappeared today, and we've continued to be very viable. And I think that bodes well for the management of Napco and the longevity. And many people will say it's a lot of it too has to do with the quality of the product that we produce.
Indeed. Well, Dave, thank you so much for detailing the market and what Napco can offer. Much appreciated. Thank you for joining the conversation.
Thanks, Scott. Appreciate the opportunity, and have a good day.